morning, life. Good morning, sun. How are you? Skies above. Gee, it's great to be alive and love. Good morning, sun. Good morning, good morning, sun. How are you? Skies above. Gee, it's great to be alive and love.
And good morning. Gonna have to wing this one. I apparently forgot to charge my little monitors and they just died. So we're gonna see if audio is working. Let's just do a test here. They just died. So
Yes.
okay, we're gonna see if audio. So I'm a little early this morning once again because I forgot to book this out. My own live stream I forgot to put on my calendar. If that tells you anything about my level of organization. So I have a meeting in an hour with a vendor to solve some business central problems. So let's jump in to my week. Cheers. Okay. So I have several, but a weekly project has been to help try to figure out how a podcast studio might be assembled in Berlin, El Salvador. And one of the challenges there is you can't just run to the local high-end audio video store and pick up whatever you want and set things up. It requires quite a bit of effort to select and import or purchase and figure out how to get this stuff there. So you want to plan carefully. So my friends in Berlin are setting up this studio, and Nikki there is showing off the new studio. It looks great, but behind the scenes, there are some things cobbled together just to get by for the next month until I can bring in some additional equipment in June. And what the interesting challenge is, if you are super, super, super basic, fine, just get a laptop, a webcam, one microphone. But as you see, there are multiple microphones there and they want to have multiple cameras. And that greatly complicates things. So they received a donation of a Rodecaster, I think it is. It's like the Rode Podcaster, Rodecaster Pro. And it looks like this, and it allows you to have, say, 4 XLR microphones, which is great. But then you need to figure out, okay, this has got a USB out, it's got to go in a computer somewhere, and it needs to be USB-C, and the computer we have only has USB-A. You start to get this tangled dependencies there. And then if they want to have multiple cameras, well, they received a donation of an ATEM Mini Pro by Blackmagic Design. So if you're familiar with that, great device. Allows you to have 4 HDMI inputs, allows you to have collars and other accessories, all sorts of configuration options like in this photo here. But it too uses USB-C, and we just don't have the computer to do that, and the cables and the power and routing, and it's like, so it gets complex. And so Eric says he has the A10 Mini. So yeah, A10 Mini is an amazing device. I think it's now only like $200 or something, which is phenomenal for a 4-port HDMI video switcher plus all the effects and things you can do. Now, I went the PC-based approach with live streaming, so I'm using vMix with my PC, so everything is 100% software-based, and I had to buy a separate HDMI capture card. And so one of the challenges is if you have a Rodecaster and you have an A10 Mini, then you need desk space, and this stuff is taking up space. And I don't have the luxury of a dedicated podcast studio or recording studio. This is literally my office, my desk. So When I'm done, I put my mic away, I roll up the green screen, and I start working without moving. So, yeah, I have a space constraint. I tried the Rodecaster Pro, it took up a third of my desk. So, anyway, when you start to combine this technology together with multiple mics, multiple cameras, and in a room and try to make it work, it becomes surprisingly complex. And you're just like, you're kidding me. How is this possible? So great technology, but you need all sorts of little things and cables and components to glue it all together. So unfortunately, I think we're going to have to buy like a MacBook. That seems to be the best option given our constraints. And so I'm going to head to the mall later this morning, check out what the specs are and how we add ports and all that stuff because I don't know anything about MacBooks. And yeah, it's getting complex and expensive. So never thought I'd be buying a MacBook in 2024, but here I am. And yes, Eric says, he works with teams and takes a webcam. So if you can keep things simple, great. You can have a simple, awesome setup. Once you start adding multiple components, so I have multiple cameras, I've got vMix, I've got an HDMI capture card, things start to really ramp up quickly. And you're like, is this worth it? But it's fun. I'm kind of geek about it. So anyway, that's one of my weekly projects. So later this morning, off to the mall to figure out if a MacBook Air is going to do what we need it to do with Ethernet and multiple USBs. And can we have extra dongles to plug in stuff? It's going to get messy. So Monday, and that was Proyectos Semanales. Got to practice my Spanish, my Espanol. Monday, lunes. This is a fun one. So I was brought into this. Apparently, this customer has been having this issue for a while. It's just that my colleagues, I'm going to give them a hard time about it because I think they should have been able to figure out quicker. But it's just kind of this weird scenario where the issues popped up and it wasn't quite sure what's going on here. So the issue is customers like, we can't copy our production to a sandbox. We cannot create more environments because we don't have enough capacity. You're like, what? You have 98 gigabytes of capacity on your tenant. Like, you've only been using Business Central for 2 years. Well, they're using 66, 67 gigabytes of that capacity. That's already like, wait, what's going on here? And so then apparently one other customer has this issue. So we have two customers with this issue. And we're like, what is going on? And one customer, when they tried to copy their environment, BC apparently would crash, that as I'm told, and it would kick everyone out, cause all sorts of problems. Like, okay, so I was brought into this one, and well, there's your problem. Production environment, 42.7 gigs. And you might think, well, they're customers with large environments. This customer's only been on BC for 2 years. What's going on here? That's a lot of data in BC. And so I got on a call and we poked around, and I'm going to talk about this in my upcoming session at DynamicsCon Live in Denver. More about that. And so we poked into table information. Ta-da! Incoming document attachments, table 133 is our culprit. Number of records, 24,520. I mean, what's the big deal? That's not a lot of records. I mean, look at changelog entry below, 6.2 million records, and it's fine. But incoming document attachments, go to the second column, record size. And I had to look these up. Like, what do these actually mean? Record size is apparently average record size, if I recall correctly. 1.662 megabytes for one record. Well, it's an incoming document attachment. But if you know anything about document attachments, you should know that's kind of large. So what's going on? Size, 3,984,895,8592. So that's basically 39.8 gigabytes in one table for 24,000 records. Well, there's your problem, folks. And I said, well, there's your problem. And instantly the consultant's like, yep, that's what I needed. I needed that evidence just to confirm that this is our problem, because apparently they had a suspicion. They just didn't have the specific evidence, and they hadn't gone through this exercise yet to provide this to the culprit and say, look, you are the problem. It's not us. So anyway, we then looked at some attachments, pulled out some PDFs, and boy, let me tell you a tale. As a kind of geek slash developer slash someone who has had to deal with PDFs in various forms over the years, create PDFs, modify, edit, and all this stuff, you may know, or I know, that a PDF is not a PDF. And there are many types of PDFs, many ways to render a PDF, create a PDF, edit, modify, OCR, you name it. And if you're not careful, so item number 3 at the bottom there, this is all about mainly the samples we pulled were QuickBooks invoices that this customer had received in Business Central. I've used QuickBooks for years. Invoices are very simple. There's nothing special about them. The PDFs are basic PDFs. The bottom PDF, 78 kilobytes, is a QuickBooks invoice that I generated out of my QuickBooks environment. 78 kilobytes. The one above it is a kind of, I think it's the QuickBooks invoice with an image in it. The one above it is what this third party is pushing into Business Central for a QuickBooks invoice. 1.5 megabytes for what could be 100, 200, 300 kilobytes. So our rough math is they are inflating the PDF by roughly 10 times at least what it could be. They're taking a optimized text-based PDF. They're converting it to another PDF as an image, a scanned image at 300 DPI. Then they are OCRing that image based on the text they just converted. So they have an image PDF with OCR text embedded in it to result in a 1.5 average 1.6 megabyte PDF file for every single record in Business Central, or 24,000 of those records, resulting in 40 gigabytes in one table. Folks, I cannot make this stuff up. So we're having to go up the chain to explain why this is a problem, how this is not acceptable, how this is not our fault or the customer's fault or Microsoft's fault or Business Central's fault. And so, Mr. Eric Hogard, if you're still listening, I think you know the phone call I'm about to give you or the email I'm about to send you with a request. You may have teased out what that request might be, but I will have a request for you because this customer now has 24,000 attachments in Business Central. And as far as I know, there's no magical portal that lets you clean these up, lets you archive them, lets you figure out which ones are too big and push them off, hint, hint, to SharePoint or OneDrive. So this customer is stuck with 40 gigabytes of useless garbage PDFs that maybe they'll open 10 of them. I don't know. But this ISV is not going to be able to help. So the customer can pay us a few $1,000s to figure out how to sort out this mess as a one-time hack. Or I'm going to make a phone call to my friend Eric and say, please have a solution to this that we could perhaps migrate your customer to a better product that can deal with this. Then we're going to have to deal with the ISV, figure out how to get those attachments in SharePoint or OneDrive instead. So folks, if you're putting attachments in Business Central, think about this. 2 years, this customer's out of space. Anyway, off soapbox, moving on. Tuesday, martes. It's just a small PTE. All the customer needs is this, Steve. Come on. Come on, don't you know? I thought you knew about Business Central, Steve. This is a tale of unexamined assumptions and requirements. And it is a request that I mentioned last week about a customer who wants special notes. So there's Business Central notes. They'll be using those for one purpose. They want special notes that are custom, accessible to only certain users, have certain administrative or managerial notes related to transactions. So we said, oh, how hard can that be? Turns out it's a little messy. and we went down one path. It's like, okay, that's kind of like difficult, complex, cluttered. Uh, We tried to simplify it. Went down one path, like, well, here are the limitations. You can't do this or you can't do that. You won't be able to do this. What if they want to do that? It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This simple request to have notes results in all these issues and problems. Like, am, am I, did I miss something here? And so I had a call with our developer, and he brought up some fantastic points. He's like, well, Steve, I understand you want to simplify it, but if you simplify it, you realize there's no way to delete them. I'm like, oh, we won't have a delete button anymore. So we're going to have to figure out, well, what if they want to delete them? What if they want to delete 5 at a time? Well, they'll have to open 1, delete, open 2, delete, open 3, delete. Like, not the end of the world, but if they delete 5 at a time all the time, that's going to be an issue. What if they never want to delete them? I hadn't thought of that. Okay. Should they be editable? What if they want to view all of them in one place so they can quickly catch up and see the chronological history, like catching up on a support ticket? Oh, you can't do that if you're opening one at a time to see the full text. So, like one thing after another, and it resulted in this list of 11 questions. And talk to my other developer. He's like, Steve, you're going overboard. This is crazy. This is like overkill. This is supposed to be an 8 to 12 hour customization. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, relax. Let's just get it done, deliver, and move on. Well, I reviewed these questions with the customer. Turns out that half the assumptions we would have made about these just simple notes would have been wrong. Like they're like, yeah, we want to see the chronology. We want to have kind of a high level view so we can scan it because maybe Sam enters notes this prior month and then Jessica comes along and has to catch up because Sam is on vacation and Jessica's taking over. So, and I thought, well, like notes in BC, you have the oldest on top and you add the newer ones on the bottom. No, they want the newest ones on top. That's the latest entry. That's what they want to read first. I'm like, 50-50 chance I was wrong, right? So one thing after another, I'm glad I asked these questions. It only took 5-10 minutes on a call and like, whoa. And they're like, we'd really love to have the simple version and the high level overview where we can see everything. Can we have both? Like, never would have thought of delivering both versions. They're like, yeah, that would be awesome. We would love this. It would make our job so much easier. I'm like, huh. So it's overkill in one sense, but in another sense, it's like the customer wants, it's like if I go into a tailor, probably a horrible analogy, but let's see where this goes. If I go into a tailor and get a suit and he just tailors it and he doesn't ask me any questions, I may walk out like, I hate this suit. Not that I know what that's like, but like maybe I can't move my arms enough. Maybe it's too tight in the shoulders. Maybe it feels too short or too long, or the sleeves aren't right, or the buttons are too high, or like maybe these are preferences. And that's what happened here. They're like, no, here's how we'd like it. I'm like, huh, who knew? Now, would you normally ask these questions for an 8-hour PT? Not unless you want to get yourself into a lot of trouble and lose a lot of money, but I'm just exploring here. I'm like, hey, I'm willing to eat a couple hours to see how this goes. And I'm like, huh, I learned a lot. I'm like, wow. They're like, yeah, we love the username and date timestamp. That's important to us. We want to see the chronology. We want to see this and that. Huh, good to know. So, I'm calling this unexamined assumptions and requirements. We assumed certain things because they said notes. Oh, this is how BC does notes, so that's how we're going to do their special notes. Nope, they wanted a different process for these types of notes. Go figure. Wednesday, miércoles. Miércoles? I attended another webinar by Anti-Siphon Training, which is kind of a sister company or related company to Black Hills Information Security. So I get these invites, hey, come and join us for this webinar, Crash Course into InfoSec with Bill McCauley. And I guess the background was Web App Pen Test Walkthrough SMB Hygiene. And This one wasn't as valuable to me because it was very high level, like, hey, you're an SMB, what should you think about, and how do you prioritize security? And so I jumped off after about 30 minutes, but great opportunity to learn something. You can sign up with BHIS for their webinars. You can sign up with Anti-Siphon, ANTISYPHON. Awesome training. Highly recommend checking them out. So there's a link to this webinar, but then you can jump off to their classes and training. Just awesome, awesome stuff. And then I wanted to do one simple thing on Wednesday. That's just record a password. I had a call with a vendor. They gave me API keys. I wanted to put them in my business password manager, 1Password. I go to launch 1Password, and what happens? On this call, while I'm trying to record this API key, my Silence endpoint protection said, no, 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 no. 1Password, no bueno, bad. So I upgraded Silence recently from version 2 something to version 3 something, and they enhanced the memory protection. And they said 1Password is doing memory operations that are high risk. So we are going to block that. We consider it a memory exploit, and I couldn't launch 1Password. I'm like, ugh. And I hadn't run into this before since I upgraded, just hadn't tested everything. So I spent well over an hour trying to figure out, how do I whitelist 1Password and allow it to function? And you see here, remote allocation of memory, whatever that means, terminates it instantly. So it's doing its job, but it's a little trigger happy on memory protection, this newer version. So I'm literally spending an hour. I went to the threats tab on the far left, whitelisted the exe there, had to do an SHA 256 hash. Turns out that was the wrong place. I then realized, oh, it's a memory access error. So I then had to go to the memory whitelist settings, whatever that is. And so this was the wrong setting, had to find the right setting, which is, a memory exclusion. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I emailed the vendor and I'm like, okay, help me out. What do I need to do? And she's like, okay, we need to have a call so I can train you on the new version. And then here's 27 pages of documentation you need to read to understand the new features, the configuration, methodology. I'm like, whoa. You're already melting my brain, folks. She's like super guru of Silence. Like, whoa, okay. It's like her full-time job. So she's awesome at it. I'm terrible at it. Understandably, I try to spend less than 5 minutes a month on this stuff, right? Only when I have to. So I'm at a point where I may train someone in Berlin to be my cybersecurity intern because my daughter's busy, and have her learn Silence. Like, hey, you want a life skill? You want a job skill? You learn Silence, I will pay you to manage my Silence. And other companies will presumably pay you to manage your enterprise endpoint protection suite. So I got to pull up 100 pages of documentation, procedures, all this stuff, new version notes, and figure out, like, how do I offload this to someone? It's probably just a few hours upfront work to catch up and get me configured, but I regularly run into issues like, okay, how do I turn this off? How do I fix this? How do I add a computer? Happy to pay someone $10, $20, whatever it is to do that. So that was my Wednesday. And our upcoming event again, I'll revisit this since it's coming up. Proximo evento, DynamicsCon Live 2024, May 13th through 16th next week at the Denver Marriott Tech Center. It is not too late to grab a ticket and attend. Just jump on your favorite Southwest Airlines private jet, head on over to Denver, and head on to the Marriott Tech Center. You can use Steve MVP15 as your discount code to get 15% off. And Blue Dragonfly and my colleague Tanya at Test Team, we will have a booth, or it's really a table, but let's call it a booth. Okay, so we're going to have a sponsor booth at DynamicsCon Live. Come check us out. We're at table 49. That won't mean anything, but just roam around and find us. We're kind of in the middle hallway section. And come say hi. I will be there. Alyssa will be there. Tanya will be there manning the booth when we're not at sessions. We're going to have giveaways. I hear we're going to have some tattoos, which is pretty cool. We're going to have some Beats Buds giveaway and a bunch of swag. Apparently, Tanya has a spin the wheel, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Come visit, say hi, check it out. Okay. And tons of sessions. You can come and just say hi to us. That would be awesome. But you should check out, there are so many sessions. I couldn't even figure out how to do a screenshot of them all. We have Tanya. I just grabbed a few. Tanya, she is a BC developer, more technical. She's going to talk about what's new in Business Central Developers Edition. We have the famous Sean Dorward. He is going to use your system better than you ever have, tips and tricks. His sessions are awesome, standing room only. Your brain is going to be melted by the end of his session like, oh my gosh, how did I not know this? And how do I write all this stuff down and try them? Guaranteed. And then there's this incredible guy, Steve Endo, with the ultimate presenter, David Wheat. Very lucky to be co-presenting with David Wheat, exploring the capacity limits of Business Central Online. And if you paid attention to my story about Business Central storage capacity, you might know one of the things I'm going to be talking about there. We're going to have several others, just sharing what we've learned about hitting the capacity limits of Business Central Online, what that means, how you deal with it, stuff like that. And then Business Central Financial Reporting with my good friend and colleague, Tanya Henderson. And then we have David Laster breaking into the benefits of telemetry for BC. Telemetry is incredible. It is one of those things you're like, oh, I need to figure out one more tool and how to use it. It takes some investment, but really, really powerful tool that we did not have in the Dynamics GP world. So take advantage of it for Business Central. And another Proximo evento. If you're not planning on attending the DynamicsCon Live in Denver next week, what do you know? Anti-Siphon Training has a class next week. I'd love to attend it. It is Active Defense and Cyber Deception with John Strand. And the topic of active defense and cyber deception is probably not on the top of my list, but the true opportunity and privilege to attend a class with John Strand. It's like the rock concert of cybersecurity presentations and trainings, and to have him personally present a class for beginners, it's hard to communicate what an opportunity and privilege that is, and to pay for it, like that alone is worth it, just to see him teach, see him present, have him share stories. And really, he is a legendary figure in cybersecurity, and what he's done with Black Hills Information Security anti-siphon training is phenomenal. So if you're at all into cybersecurity and you want to geek out for 4 days, you have the time. I think it's like $500 some is the full price. If you can't afford that, you're a student, you're in between jobs, or you're learning cybersecurity and you don't have that money available, you can request a pay what you can exemption. Say, hey, I can pay $100 or I can't pay anything. Just contact them and they will help you through it, because I'm happy to pay the full price, because phenomenal training. Your brain will melt by the time you're done with this. And this one is 4 days. I think the last one I did was 2 or 3 days. So 4 days, 4 hours each. Woof. You will be exhausted. Awesome classes. And our tool of the week. People, if you are in the Business Central community and you are not using centralq.ai, seriously head on over this website and just ask it a question. Just say, hey, how do I enter an AP manual payment? Literally something I had to do because I'm dealing with the circus of all the technical stuff and just barely trying to keep up from that insane running treadmill of technology on that side. I have not even been able to learn 99%, let's be honest, 99% of the functional side. So I constantly go to centralq.ai to ask it dumb questions, and it is extremely patient with me. And you can I recently learned, Dimitri shared that you can give it hints to tell it how you want it to respond. So in this case, if you say, how do I enter an AP manual payment? It'll say, oh, well, in the context of the payables workflow, AP manual payments play this role. And you're like, whoa, 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 slow down, big guy. You can tell it to please respond succinctly, or please just the facts, sir. And you can tell it that in your request. So I said, how do I enter an AP manual payment? Question mark. Please respond succinctly. Awesome. And it's like, boom, enter an AP manual payment, navigate here, here, fill in these fields, review this, click this. You can use this, but if you want to do this, you can do that. And so 8 points, boom, done. Awesome. So check out centralq.ai. Seriously, just stop using Google. You may need to craft the question a few different ways. So sometimes it's like, I'm not finding what you want. So then just rephrase it and give it some hints as to what you're looking for. And I think you will be happy with it. And on Thursday, jueves, I booked my next flight to El Salvador in June. I will be there pretty much all the month of June from the 3rd to the 27th, I think, building the training program there, doing classes, training students, and working on the podcast studio. And I arranged a new Airbnb in Berlin. So rather than staying at the world famous La Fuente Hotel in Berlin, El Salvador, a lap of luxury with the laundry going on both sides of the room at 5 a.m. and 10 p.m. I mean, it is an experience, folks. Bring your earplugs. So I am actually going to be renting a house from a friend there. He has a really nice Airbnb, and it has a second bedroom. So I'm arranging a couple of guests to come visit up in Berlin. And so that'll be sorted out. And so that's taken care of. My trip to Berlin, got to arrange a few other details. And I worked with a vendor to get external SaaS API access. And I finalized my Dynamic Con presentation yesterday. I mentioned I had to figure out what to buy for a MacBook. I need to head to the mall today to just confirm specs. And I got to figure out what dongles do I need, because it wouldn't be an Apple product without a bunch of dongles, because they only give you 2 USB-C ports. It's like, is that like USB-C for ants? I mean, we're running a podcast studio here, folks. And, is Friday blank? I thought I updated that. Well, okay. Friday, I got to go register a car. I got to go to the mall, to the Apple store. I have to submit my presentation, get it uploaded for the conference. And I have a call, which is why I'm doing it early this morning. I have a call with a vendor to troubleshoot that PDF storage issue. So that's what I'm doing on Friday, folks. On to Viernes, on to the excellence update. This week, among other things, I worked on a course, for lack of a better term, a lesson. People are jumping into the Business Central training. They have never heard of the Letters ERP or Word ERP. They don't know what it is. They've never done this before. So the training is oriented to those people. So one of the things I thought would be helpful is, what are some of these consulting terms that I'm being barraged with learning this stuff? And so I figured I would come up with a list of terms, lingo, terminology, acronyms that this poor person is going to have to figure out, instead of, wait, what is that word? What does that mean? What are you talking about? Because that was literally me, my first job out of college, sitting there, and they're talking about GLAPAR. I'm like, what is GLAPAR? I thought it was one word, literally. They were saying GLAPAR, and if someone says glapper, which I personally hate that, but people say glapper. I'm a glapper user. I'm like, what? GLAPAR. So these poor students won't know what any of this stuff means. So, hey, let's give an orientation of the lingo. SaaS, they'd be like, SaaS, what are you talking about? I'm not sassy, right? On premises, features, setup, data migration, tenants, personalization. So this is to help them get some context before we throw them into Business Central windows, right? So that's what I worked on. I pulled that together. There's actually like 10 pages of these terms, from businesses, roles. What is a CIO? What is a CEO? What are some accounting terms? Debits and credits, entries, fiscal periods, right? All this stuff is going to be new. So this is an attempt to kind of give them some context for the language. And I congratulate myself. Congratulations. Oops. Sorry, I hit a button. Congratulations, Steve, on setting up a brand new Business Central environment for our students. And we have Gerardo, Jocelyn, and David getting started in earnest. And I set up accounts for Edgar and Daniela just when they are ready to jump into BC. So we have a new domain for them just for Berlin, BC learning. We have a new dedicated Business Central demo environment and tenant for them. And we will have an English environment, perhaps a Spanish environment, depending on where people are at. And I have accounts set up. So we are rolling, did that at 11 o'clock last night, which is why I am ready for El Fin de Semana, folks. That is me. That is a live action shot of me as soon as I finish this live stream, folks. So with that, let me know if you have any Q&A. I see there are a few people lurking. Any questions? I did not pre-fill any Q&A this week, and happy to wrap it up if there are none. So I would say examine your unexamined assumptions and requirements around PTEs, and maybe you'll get in the habit of just asking those quick questions up front when you're having the conversation, like, hey, do we need to restrict permission around these? Do you want to edit these after these records are entered? Do you want to delete them? Do you need to see all of them, one of them? You need to have multi-record operations, right? Do you need sorting and filtering? Like, it sounds trivial, but your developer will thank you. If a functional consultant sends a one-paragraph request to your developer, he or she can go 35 different directions with that. If you send them the answers to these 15 questions, they will say, oh my gosh, thank you. Now I know how to proceed with my design, implementation, coding, UI, UX, whatever, right? And watch out for those tricky ISVs who store attachments and Business Central. They'll get you into trouble. So with that, have a good one. El fin de semana, and cheers. Necesito café. Adios.
Do, do, do,